Welcome to Executives at the Edge, the podcast from Amplify. Each episode features insights from the top network, cloud, and technology executives, giving you key takeaways to help you grow your revenue and bring solutions to market faster. I'm your host, Pascal Menezes. Join me as we explore thought-provoking perspectives from the leaders and changemakers propelling the AI-powered digital economy forward. I'm really super excited to have Ethan Blodgett. He's the VP of Product Management for Lumen Technologies. And today we're going to cover really some exciting areas about really Lumen's Cloud 2.0 architecture and for AI, and really the training aspects and the bandwidth and the latency needs for AI, and really what are the economics around AI to make this all happen, including north, south, east, west, programmable networks, elastic networks. So it's going to be a very exciting episode. With that, Ethan, welcome to Executives at the Edge. And if you can tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Lumen Technologies, that'd be great.
Thanks, Pascal. Really appreciate you having me today. Excited to be here and talk a little bit about, Cloud 2.0. At Lumen, I am responsible for, within product, I'm responsible for managed professional services. So you can think of that as all the traditional managed services that come around networks. Also adding on to that security, managed security as well. And then also, couldn't have managed services without AI and automation. So really focused on that as well within the managed services space. Been with Lumen for about a year now. Lumen has been around for quite some time and has grown up with lots of different telcos coming together. And as you know, we have a very large backbone, one of the largest peered ASs in the world. And so we're really excited about this whole AI economy that's really happening today, because we think we're really empowered to help solve some of these big data problems that are showing up.
Well, thank you, Ethan. I look at Lumen today, and it's really a very different company, and congratulations. And you really are pivoting around this Cloud 2.0. So can you tell us a little bit more about what is Cloud 2.0 and why is AI forcing this rethinking of network architecture?
Absolutely. If you think back about networks in the past, they were, pretty simple architectures. The applications would live in 1-2 data centers, and they would have some users that would connect to them normally from different offices. Today, everything is distributed. It's distributed across multiple clouds, across different SaaS platforms, different remote endpoints, more data centers. And so we've been expanding this enterprise perimeter, and it's almost all-encompassing of the entire internet. AI is even more amplifying this problem because now we're trying to train models, we're trying to have data living in all these different locations, and you need to be able to transfer east to west at petabyte scale. So in the future, if your network isn't able to keep up with this type of scale, you're really going to get left behind. And so Lumen is really focused on how can we deliver, low latency, high speed value to our customers. And really that's why we're calling ourselves the trusted network for AI.
We've been at Amplify building NAS, Network as a Service, and we started with the business workloads. And I've been the CTO in a decade of this, working with taking all these assets and finally wrapping under Network as a Service. And AI has become a very fundamentally different workload than the business, as you said. And we see that the internet is not going to be able to deliver, as you said, for the AI workloads for many reasons. You need a purpose-built infrastructure that has the quality, has the availability, the speeds, the capacity, and also the cybersecurity. You talked about cybersecurity. We'll get into that a little bit. So we think NAS is a programmable, elastic, automated network that ties in both inference from all kinds of peripherals, agents, AI agents, billions of agents out there, edges, back to then the main AI factories or edges and so on, all that interconnection. So can you explain a little bit about how do you see this all come together? How does the enterprise network use AI and what's fundamentally changing about all of this?
Yeah, so you mentioned programmable, and I think that's really important, right? So if you think about the networks of old, they were all built on Mimi rooms and point-to-point circuits and long order intervals, and trying to turn things up in a standard provisioning process. Whereas how we're thinking about the new architecture for Cloud 2.0 is going to be more of a programmable switched architecture where everything is already connected and lit. And it's just a matter of how you turn up those new paths to new workloads, whether they're at whatever hyperscaler they're at or whatever neocloud that they happen to live on. And you need to be able to do that at really fast speeds. And so the idea would be, how can a customer say, I have a new workload that I'm firing up at this new, hyperscaler, and be able to bring that up very, very quickly.
So I looked at Lumen's footprint. You're trenching fiber everywhere. And congratulations, you sold to a lot of hyperscalers. Your stock's gone up tenfold. Amazing. Really, really great success. But you talk a lot about getting rid of the access, moving more into like a middle mile player, interconnecting all the data centers, the edges. Is that kind of what you call Cloud 2.0?
So in some cases, yes, it's really more the east-west traffic versus north-south traffic. So if you think about traditionally north-south traffic being, uh, the customer locations to data centers, kind of up and down, if you will. And now we're looking at it, how do we connect east to west, which is hyperscaler to hyperscaler, hyperscaler to neocloud, and how can we do that for customers so they can connect those payloads and workloads for inferencing or for training or whatever they need to do. The other piece of that, why we're really focused on that east to west traffic, is because financially, if you think about idle time for GPUs as they sit there, if you're transferring, call it a petabyte of data over a 10 gig circuit, you're going to take 200 plus hours to transfer that data, all while GPUs are sitting there waiting for information. If you increase that throughput to 400 gigs plus, you're looking at 5 to 6 hours. And so, that Cloud 2.0 infrastructure and really that on-ramp to how you get to these different hyperscalers and do it dynamically and on the fly is what we see as really key to this shift in this AI economy.
Now, when we talk about programmable or automation in this, and that's really the base of a network as a service fabric. Now, many providers I talk to are fully not automated internally. Now, I know at Lumen, you've spent a lot of energy automated internally. And I don't know if they call that north to south. We call it north to south. But east to west, I know the automation across the ecosystem is riddled full of long delays, can be months sometimes to turn things up. Is that kind of what you're saying? Is that everything within your network fabric, everything connected to everything else out in the ecosystem and all your partners, the clouds, hyperscalers, other sites and all and so on, are that what you're talking about is fully automated and kind of purpose built where the automation turns up stuff almost instantly. You can scale up and down, have elastic capabilities, but it's a deterministic fabric. It's not the internet, throw a packet in, comes out somewhere, maybe. It's deterministic. And then hopefully it has some kind of cybersecurity for AI and other business workloads. Is that kind of what you're describing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's the idea is, as you know, Lumen has 93, 94% of all data center locations in the US are already lit by Lumen. And so taking on that already dense fiber network we have with many, lit buildings and data centers, being able to enable users or customers, enterprise customers, to be able to utilize that extra capacity that we have on the fly, right? So how can they potentially be able to go light that up and start passing traffic across it in a quick fashion versus the historic way of, putting in an order, provisioning the order, going through that process that takes, longer period of time. So yeah, the answer is it's a dynamic environment where customers can order on demand the bandwidth that they need to the locations that they need, and be able to fire that up very quickly.
I've been there 10 years and we created the APIs, East-West APIs called Lifecycle Service Orchestration APIs. And we have probably 100 plus in production, even more. And I got to tell you, it's been a very slow adoption process to get everybody going. And it's been really unfortunate because you think about what Wi-Fi and USB and Bluetooth and HDMI is done to bring the ecosystem together in a plug and play way. I find it hard and challenging with the telcos to do that. You talk about the east to west interconnecting and turning things up. So a customer says, I have to wait for months. You literally have a global footprint in a way, virtually, in a way through all your partnerships. And have you found that automation challenging? And do we think MCP will be the way of abstracting all of that and turning it up even faster with model context protocol that is wrapping all these APIs? What do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned partnerships, and I would say, a lot of what we're thinking about is all of our on-net capabilities, right? I think that is a huge challenge when you get to an off-net type capability with a partner. I think there's challenges we haven't tackled there yet, right? So, when you're talking about global footprint, when you talk about our backbone, our network that we have control over that's on net with us, that's really what we're talking about is how we're seeing, Cloud 2.0 from our perspective. And it's really how we can, control the network that's ours and be able to, rapidly connect people together when it's an on-net type service. I'm curious to hear if you guys have tackled this kind of off-net, type 2 type issue, because I think it's a broader problem.
That's exactly what we've been focused on. We've not been focused on internally in your network how to automate. That's really TM Forum's done a good job of that. And they've been doing it for decades. We spent a decade really building the ecosystem globally, where you connect to hyperscalers, newer clouds, other telcos, providers. Your customer says, look, I want to go to these spots in the world, and some are on your net, some are off your net. To them, it shouldn't really matter. It should have the same experience. Now, that's the challenge. How do you get that experience the same? How do you turn up the same thing on net, off net? How do you give observability? How do you give the guarantees and the SLAs and the quality of service? That's what we've been tackling, and that's kind of what we've been launching. Now with AI and MCP, we really have a chance to have a much, much, much faster open ecosystem. I'm seeing MCP take off really, really rapidly. We've built our whole life cycle of our APIs, everything from an address to a quote, to an order, to provisioning, to testing the service, to monitoring the service, fault management, trouble ticketing, billing, the whole life cycle. And it's taken a decade, millions of dollars, tons of time to get adoption. And thank God for that. But really, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of providers have to get there. And even these neoclouds and hyperscalers have their own APIs, so you have to convert one to the other. I believe that if AI is going to succeed, there's going to be AI exchange points, which we're building in our APIs of cross connects, and how do you buy power and space at these colos, and then basically cross connect into these other partner ecosystems because. And maybe Lumen only services the North American market or especially the US market, but many providers are servicing globally and they have to partner. So can you give us any thoughts on that? And we're going to go into cybersecurity.
Yeah, we definitely service, global customers. I mean, we have a global network. We are focused very heavily on the US market. And as you know, we have one of the largest fiber-rich networks in the world. And so, a lot of our focus is on what we already have lit and what we already have on net to our network. And so, writing, automation for those links is a lot easier for us than having to go and partner with somebody else to say, hey, can we create a two-way API type setup? Not saying we're not going to do that, but at this current moment, we have most everything lit, right? So we're ready to roll. And our customers need a lot of bandwidth. In some cases, a lot of the partners that we're seeing, they can't support, the levels of throughput people are looking for at this moment, which is 400 gig and soon to be 800 gig.
But I think most of the things you're talking about is training, or I'd call it training in the way that, you're taking, RDMA over Ethernet with petabytes of data and bringing it into a data science team, and they're going to train it. Okay, so that's one, and I absolutely agree with you 100%. That takes tons of bandwidth, and it has to be zero packet loss, and time is critical.
I do want to kind of just go back for 2 seconds, though, because I want to make sure you're kind of understanding where I'm coming from around, dialing up and dialing down. So if you think about going back to, infrastructure as a service, call it whatever vendor that would provide, compute as a service. At first it was very clunky. And now if you want to go and buy, X amount of compute, you log into a portal, you say, I need, this many servers, I need this much compute, you buy it, it's available for you right then and there, pretty much on demand. So I think what we're saying from a on-demand perspective, from a network perspective, we want to do the exact same thing as the cloud providers are already doing, right? And so they can dial that up at any given time and say, I need this now, I don't need it later. We're seeing this in a lot of different verticals where customers are like, hey, from a studio, for example, where they're lit and then they're dark. They don't want to have to pay for the excess bandwidth while they're dark. They want to be able to fire it up when they're lit. That's one example of not really a training model, but just I need massive bandwidth to be able to produce this TV show or commercial, whatever it is, and then dial it back down. And so I just wanted to kind of, I guess, put an exclamation on that so you were clear on that.
Now I get it. Okay, so you're talking about the elastic capabilities of your network.
100%.
And basically you bill according to that on-demand elastic capabilities. And that's what you're saying. Okay, yes. Good point. And that is really an important point of even the NAS fabric. I just said that, and that elastic is a part of it. So what you're saying is that, and when they want 400 gigabits, they can get 400 gigabits, but when they don't need it, then why should they pay for 400 gigabits? And they want to dial it down. And so it could be policy driven or some kind of agent or some kind of user driven. But you have that automation that can scale up, and that's what you're calling your NAS fabric.
Absolutely. Yeah, correct.
Okay, Now I get it. Thank you. Thanks for that clarification.
Yep.
So that's very good to understand the difference. And I'm really appreciative that the fact that you guys are already connected to everything in the US market, and as you expand to the global market, you'll be connected to all the various new clouds, hyperscalers also. Right. And so that, I think, means that your footprint keeps expanding and connecting to all these places. But do you think at some point you will have to go through other providers, other
100%. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think that the limitation and slowdown is not going to be us. It's going to be us trying to interact with these other third parties.
Yes.
To make sure that, it inherently, I think, I would like to think we're ahead of others in this thinking. And, so we need them to catch up, if you will.
Okay, so how is really the network going to be changing and evolving beyond transporting data? Like you talked about cybersecurity. We're building, our NAS suite has obviously transports, automation, as we talked about, but it also has cybersecurity for AI. And we're also, what was announced recently was just really the federated edge. So we're moving to federation models where you can federate train. How do you think about cybersecurity on your fabric? Do you think that's a need, a necessity that, especially when models, you can, because these things are all open, and so you have to put guardrails, firewalls in, AI firewalls. Any thoughts on this?
100%. Yeah. And that's really why we, started looking into very heavily, how do we implement managed security around our fabric, around AI assessments, et cetera. So we have a whole team of people within managed services that's focused on, how can we make sure the customers not only have a secure network to buy, but then we can help them secure their portion of the network as well. So everything past the DMARC. It's super important. And, I think it would be silly to think that a customer would want to buy a network from us and us not help them secure it. And so for that reason, we're really focused on, everything you can imagine from, securing AI workloads to AMDR, all different types of facets within security.
Okay. And one thing I forgot to ask you in the other question, what is the bandwidth that people want? Is it, and what kind of transport? Is it all wavelengths? Or are they buying fiber, or carry Ethernet, IP, all the above? And what kind of speeds we're talking about? I know 100 gigabits available, 400 gigs just started to come out, but 800, 1.6 terabits. I mean, can you help us understand that?
Yeah, I think that the need for more throughput is rapidly changing. I'm not going to sit here and try and predict when you're going to need 800, 1.6. Is it coming? Yeah, it's coming. And it's probably coming faster than we saw the jump from 10 to 100 to 400. And so I think it'll be here before you know it. We are seeing a lot of demand when it comes to waves. Customers that wouldn't have historically wanted to purchase a wave are now asking us lots of questions about, hey, how do I implement this? How do I buy this? It's super cost effective. and I think I need that much bandwidth, And so, we're training and talking to customers that we wouldn't historically have thought would be interested in waves, more large enterprise customers versus, hyperscalers and other carriers. So, of course, we still sell a lot of traditional, bandwidth as well and throughput, but it's really moving towards that wave technology, if you will.
What about carrier Ethernet in smaller models that want to scale up and down? Because carrier Ethernet has the same idea, statistical model, statistical technology, but you can get explicit rates by minimum bandwidth bursting. It's got the service layer, a performance fault. Do you see any of the carrier Ethernet as part of this interconnection fabric of your Cloud 2.0, or is it mainly wave and IP layer, or do you see IP playing part of this, or can you help us with this?
I think it could be all of the above, right? I personally, I think it's probably mostly IP and wave, but yeah, I mean, we could use different technologies, if you will, as we're thinking about interconnecting these different locations. Whatever's available, what's on net, those are the kind of the keys from my perspective.
Yeah, so your customers just say what they want and you deliver it to them at what speeds, and it's all automated. Correct. On demand, and they can scale up and down. Can they also do it in the way of policy, in the ways the time of days and context, so it's fully automated? They don't have to go in and say, oh, this time change it and this time change it back, or is all that part of it?
I mean, in the future, yes, that will be part of it. And even further down the path, thinking how can we actually enable it from an AI perspective? How can the network be aware that, hey, I just reached a limitation to dropping packets. I need to increase my CIR to allow for, more throughput. So yeah, I mean, all of those things are on the roadmap for us to think about how we can, prevent problems from occurring. We don't want to have to make it human beings having to go click buttons. It's way better whenever the network realizes, hey, there's a problem, I can solve it, and send notification that it's solved.
So the agentic realm's coming in, and you think it'll be all AI agent driven, right? And in operations for sure, and operating your networks and so on. But we also see agents there are agents that will come to provision and buy, and work with other providers. It'll be all very fully automated in real time. But there's also agents that are just doing their own thing from workloads in the enterprise too, and they all need a NAS fabric. But, Ethan, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. It's really been great to get some insight. Again, congratulations to Lumen. You guys have done a wonderful job in really making an impact, and obviously making your shareholders happy by rising the stock. So congratulations.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Pascal. Great to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to Executives at the Edge, brought to you by Amplify. Be sure to follow, share, and leave a review. Catch every episode on your favorite platform or visit us at amplify.net.